So I'm a little.
Well,
and on that note, Chev,
we are live. I am wearing pants. You asked me if I wasn't wearing pants. I changed my pants.
You said you weren't wearing pants. I just found that was an odd way to
segue
into the show.
I had pants on, but I had just come back from the gym and I had just come back from a steam. And I'm not gonna lie, my butt's sweating in the chair, and I had to take off my joggers, so I'm in shorts. I'm not new. That's my pregame ritual. What's yours?
I try, because this is a late show. I try to get in a nap, like a late nap late in the day. Come back, grab a shower, review my notes, get on with you and Jenna, just figure out exactly what we're going to be doing. But it's just kind of like, for me, it's like game day, right? I start low and I build up to it to the point that we go live.
Well, I'm glad you're ready to rock, Sheldon, because we have an awesome show for you. For everyone joining us, welcome to the ride. All right, welcome to the ride with Chevy and Nasty. We are brought to you by Dream, Reach, Achieve, and We Drone. But this segment in particular is sponsored by Dream, Reach, Achieve. And Sheldon, great to be back. We're online every second Tuesday, live on YouTube Live. We're live on Facebook. I don't believe we're on LinkedIn yet, but we're also on all the socials, and we are ready to rock. We got a great show for you tonight. Here's a ride.
All right. Trade request. How dare he? We're going to talk a little Nikita Zadorov going public, requesting a trade early in the season and getting what he asked for.
A little bit of 300-pound poetry. I hope I spelled that right. But yeah, we're going to, we always bring the poetry. It might not be great, but we got something for you.
And then we've got Chris Rubio, the Rubio Method, one of the great hosts here on the NGBN network. He said a couple of things a couple of weeks back that I want to call him out on a little bit, see if he's changed his opinion now as a little bit of time has passed. But that's going to be coming up in the second.
And I can't wait for Rubio. We got a surprise for him. He's a really great, engaging personality. It's going to be a fun interview. You want to stick around for Rubio. And with Rubio, we're going to talk a little bit about what he does, but we're also going to talk about the NCAA. A lot of things going on this week with the transfer portal, which is basically like free agent frenzy, but at the college level. We're also going to talk on that note about something going on in college at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, and a little bit of that story. And then Sheldon, nasty thoughts.
Nasty thoughts, sir. Third segment. We got to talk about the debacle that was Sunday Night Football with the with the Chiefs and some calls at the end of the game. It didn't end up, I think the right team won, but it's just one of those things that you don't expect to see on such a high profile game on a Sunday night. And Chev, I want to ask you if you've ever been cost a game by an official, but we're going to save that for the third.
But I was going to say, we'll save it for the third. And I appreciate you asking my opinion on that. I'm looking forward to your take on it. But we're going to start, we always talk football. We always say, football. And we love talking football. We talked CFL the last couple of weeks. Obviously, that Grey Cup was a match of the ages. We did a Grey Cup special. But, we love other sports too. One of the sports we love, we've got a lot of listeners on the NGBN network from the States. One of the sports we love is hockey. And it's the great Canadian sport. And, the team that represents the city we live in, the Calgary Flames, gone through a little bit of turmoil lately, Sheldon. Not just this year, but gosh, it's been a couple of years where the wheels have been coming off, and a young, well, not so young star, but a young quality player last week asked to be traded, or a week and a half ago asked.
It was a couple weeks ago, but the way he did this, you're talking about Nikita Zadorov, a big Russian defenseman, big man, plays. He's playing in the third pairing right now, but he gives us some real quality minutes. He's one of those character guys that brings physical when you need physical. He makes smart plays. He doesn't turn the puck over that much. He was one of my favorite guys on the team. But 2 weeks ago in Toronto, in hockey, arguably hockey's biggest market, his agent comes out right after the game calling for a trade. And that was something I just didn't see coming from this guy, because he talked about how he wanted how his love for the city and how he felt about being in this situation. But he finds himself now as we're going through, we're trying to sort things out with the Flames. He got through the summer without a new deal, no contract. Everybody seems to be spending more time worrying about the other contracts that we have coming up and trying to figure out where, and he feels like he's sort of the odd man out. Culminating calling for a trade and maybe speculation that he thinks he should be a second pairing guy, more ice time. But in football, Chev, is this something you've seen before? Have you ever been in that situation? Have you ever called for a trade? Have you ever called your agent and said, how do I get out of here? Like, what prompts a guy to actually go public in that way and ask for a trade?
You know what, Sheldon, I'm not sure. There's probably a time or two where I wish I might have made a change. I didn't have a big agent. Obviously, I played in Calgary for the bulk of my career. So, I wasn't looking to be traded, but there was a couple of times, some tougher years for me personally and professionally, where I probably could have looked at the open market. But I weighed all the pros and cons. I mean, I'm playing in the CFL. We're not talking about millions of dollars. We're talking about, anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 for a backup D tackle, long snapper. By the time I would have been looking at that. And for me, I weighed it, and where I was and where I am and where I ended up allowed me to have as long a career I did. Not to say that everything was perfect, but what he said is, first of all, he did an about face, because last year he said he'd love to play his whole career for the Flames. Next thing you know, he asked for a trade, but he said it best. And if Jenna could put up that slide again, he said it best. He said it's a business. He has to be professional, and no one gives a shit about his feelings. At the end of the day, he didn't get a contract offer. He asked for a contract extension. This is the age where players ask for contract extensions in all sports before their contract is up. And if the team doesn't honor them with that, if the team says, well, we'll see how you perform this year, that's a slight against a player. And he felt that. He felt the lack of respect, not just in terms of not being offered a contract, but not being up on a higher pairing, where he felt he should have been. And he got dealt. And you know what? More power to the player, because you know what? If you're not happy here, you're not going to be happy, and you're not going to be contributing to the team. There might be some other issues. I mean, the Flames have been suffering from an exodus of talent, management, coaching for the last, whether it was by design, whether it was by happenstance. There have been a lot of issues here. They lost their 2 100-point getters 2 years ago with Goudreau and Tkachuk, that both could have come back, wanted to leave. Last year, they lose their GM and then the coach.
And Toffoli, right? Toffoli wanted part of this.
You know what? It's kind of been a tire fire. My son was at the game Sunday night. He said, Dad, they booed him all night long. And do the fans have a right to boo him? I as a fan, you hate when a player says he doesn't want to play for your team anymore. But, if the Flames fans are honest with themselves, they deserve a little bit more for their faith. It's been a rough couple of years. They had a good run a few years ago, then they lost to the Oilers, and after that, it's just been downhill. This whole summer was plugging the holes in the boat, praying that players that could resign wouldn't leave. They almost lost their captain. They almost lost Lindholm, and then all of a sudden, those guys are back. But they're not out of the woods. And this Zadorov thing speaks to a deeper issue with Calgary. So do the fans have a right to boo? I guess. You know what, Sheldon? We're going to move on. And before we do, let's read some of the quotes. We got Rob Evans join us. He says, it's business. Wish him the best. Yeah, thanks, Rob. And then we got our buddy Jack Fulton. Jack Fulton is along for the ride tonight. We love Jack, and we're going to have him on the show one day because he does a lot of good work in the community for football players. But Sheldon, we talked a little bit of hockey. We talked a little bit about our local team. We pull for the Flames. I pull for the Habs, the Montreal Canadiens. That's my team, but I still pull for the local guys. I want them to succeed, but there's a lot of problems there that they need to address. I think now the problem we need to address is the quality of our poem and how it's going to look on the other end, because you know how this goes, Sheldon. It's not always pretty. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Jenna, hit the music.
Let's play that song. We know this poem's trash. Sometimes your poets are weak. This ain't the place for you if it's perfection you seek.
Thursday night football kicked off with a Lambeau leap, but the officiating crew's decisions looked like they were half asleep. Maybe fully
Lots
asleep.
of billboard material after a war of words. but with a healthy Brock Purdy, Iowa State, the 49ers grounded the Birds.
You love that guy, don't you?
I love that guy.
Well, speaking of NCAA, the NCAA playoff bracket is now all set and screwed. Huge. But an undefeated Florida State, they clearly got screwed. They got 13. They were perfect, and they're not making the playoffs or the run for
that's a rough one.
Uphill. We might hit that later.
In the CFL big news, the Riders get a new face. The man slated to lead them, none other than Corey Mace.
Oh, he's such a good dude. Old teammate of mine. And you know what? He's going to lead the charge there. Jack Fulton, he wanted us to mention that, made the poem. And for the final stanza, we can't believe it's December. I can't believe we're already there. We are Chevy and nasty, and there's a slight chill in the air.
Yeah, Chev. You know what? That wasn't as bad as you said it was going to be. I think you pretty much nailed everything that we wanted to, everything that happened here big to us in the last week. That last comment, the chill in the air, and it's been an absolutely gorgeous November into December here in Calgary, Alberta. But right now we're starting to get a bit of a chill in the air, and we're also starting to see the little kidlets getting sick, dropping off with flus. It's gone through my house. Both of my boys have had it. Chev, I haven't seen you for almost 2 weeks because you've been chasing flus all over this province. What's been going on in your world?
Oh man, I tell you, it's not the woe is me, but it's really been interesting. I mean, because it's not just hitting the kidlets. I had 2 of 3 of my kids sick. In fact, my oldest was sick as well, but he was kind of the most resistant to it. But yeah, just my middle son got sick last week. My youngest son was sick on the weekend. I was with him and taking care of him, but also my girlfriend, who's a very healthy person. She runs a fitness company. She eats healthy. She lives healthy. Like, she's clean living. She came down with a pneumonia and was hospitalized. So I spent the better part of the last 2 weeks driving back and forth. She lives in Red Deer, which is about an hour and a half away, visiting her. And I got to tell you, like, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I really want to get to Rubio, but being in the hospital system, going with her, I knew the hospital system here in Alberta, and I know across Canada has been under strain, but gosh, it was tough to see it firsthand. I saw it with my girlfriend at the hospital in Red Deer, and I also saw it on the weekend with my son. I brought him into one of the urgent care facilities. We waited 5 hours before we got seen, and they post wait times where they say you're going to wait 30 minutes. Well, we drove out to Cochrane, go to the urgent care. It's 5 hours later to get him checked out. And then, again, with my girlfriend, a little bit more serious, admitted for pneumonia. She had to go on some heavy antibiotics. We had taken care of her at home. It wasn't working. She didn't respond properly, admitted to the hospital. It just seemed like there was a lack of communication. And you're telling people the same thing over and over. You get a new staff on, the night staff. They don't know what the day staff was doing. They tell you the doctor's going to come and visit you at night to tell you what the plan is. And then the next people come in and tell you, hey, no one's coming to see you tonight. They don't do their rounds at night. And you're just left in the dark. And it's very chaotic. And if you've had a negative experience previously at a hospital or in care, it makes for a very traumatic experience. And I witnessed that. My girlfriend's usually pretty calm and level-headed, but to see the uncertainty, to not understand how long we're going to be there or what the plan was,
it's frustrating. Yeah, it really
absolutely.
This is crazy. Rob, one of our guests, just writes in saying, yeah, he's watching the show right now from Cochrane Urgent Care.
Yeah, well, I hope your wait, Rob, wasn't as long as mine. I know they shut the doors there at 10, so no one's coming in behind you. They just got to get through the night. But yeah, so I know our doctors, our nurses, there's a shortage of everything, and they're doing their best. They're burnt out. COVID really flipped that industry, so to speak, on its head. But it's really hard when you're going through it, and
and this is a bad one. This coming out of China again. I mean, this right now, they're saying there's all these respiratory diseases that are just on steroids right now, and it's just starting to come into the country. We had our first case in September, but right now everybody's getting sick. So I guess, folks, we're going to have to go to break here in just a second. But just a reminder, while you're heading out to the games, wherever you go, let's bring back a little bit of that COVID. Make sure you're washing your hands. Make sure you're disinfecting.
Did you say let's bring back the COVID?
Let's bring back the COVID protocols. I'm not saying I'm not masking up. I'm not doing any of that, but I am being a lot more conscious of getting a scrub every time I get in and out of a building or a meeting with a person.
And my last piece of advice, because I felt this, and I was never like this. First of all, two things I was never like. I was never like, the hospital guy. Like if my kids were sick, it's like tough it out. But you know what? After seeing my girlfriend go through pneumonia and watching my son with very similar symptoms, he actually looked worse than her. I was like, I'm bringing him in right away. You have to get checked for your kids, for your loved ones, even for yourself. Don't be a tough guy. Don't be a tough guy, because they drained a liter of fluid from my girlfriend's
I saw
lung.
the picture. Oh.
They drained a liter of fluid, and we thought she was on the mend. And if you're at home and you're not a doctor and you don't know, so you got to go get checked. And the other thing I'm going to say is, when you're there, I was never this person. You never want to ruffle feathers. You have to advocate for yourself and for the people you love. I called the charge nurse in her room from Calgary to say, listen, we need someone to visit her, because it was like a late Friday night. She hadn't seen a doctor in 2 days. They had taken the fluid. They had taken x-rays. No one gave her a plan. No one gave her a protocol. Finally, a resident comes in and says, looks at her x-ray from 2 days earlier. And is like, oh, you should have been on these antibiotics for 2 days now.
Yeah.
So I called the charge nurse and I was like, listen. And she's like, well, sir, we can't release information to you. I'm like, I don't want any information. I just know that patient in that room is ready to leave the hospital if you don't send someone in there to tell her what the plan is. And I don't want her to leave. I want her to be there and follow the protocol to be healthy, but not help. So get someone to speak to her, and you have to advocate. You have to advocate.
Yeah. Sheldon, in Regina, 11 hours in the emergency room. But yeah, Chevy, we do have to take this to break. Hitting a chord with a lot of people that are going through the same thing right now.
Let's hit the socials, Sheldon. If you're
always go to the
following us,
socials, guys. Anybody, if you're interested and you want to see any of the other little bits that we do, or you can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, or X. It's just at Chevy and Nasty and all at all our socials. When we come back, we've got the legend Chris Rubio joining us. Folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back on the ride.
Are you a business owner or sales professional and want to build and maintain a peak performing premium pricing sales team? Are you and your team finding it difficult to work with clients you want to at the premium prices you deserve? The Professional Sales and Execution Certificate Program will dismiss the sales myths that have limited you and your team and stalled your complete company's growth. Learn all about our PSE secret weapons, including the 98.2 premium presentation that helps build a high-ticket repeat sales network. These absolutely dead simple secret weapons allow you and your team to be yourself and utilize extremely powerful ways to decide which clients you want to work with. If you're ready for a high energy and high power training session that will completely transform you and your team into the envy of your industry, simply click here and register and book now. Get started on your premium pricing high ticket sales execution journey now.
This is NGBN TV, a network for men and home to top experts, speakers, authors, and more. Streaming TV for men, created by men.
But why?
Why are we a network that inspires,
educates, entertains, celebrates, and supports
men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, simply to save men's lives?
There is an epidemic in our community,
and it's taking men from us.
I'm talking about mental health and suicide.
But we have an answer, and it's streaming, live shows, sports, concerts, and more.
In a real way for men to lock shields.
We can't wait to launch this TV network for you and with you.
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 Join our movement at ngbn.tv, coming January 2024.
All right, welcome back to the ride. Thanks for joining us. We got a lot of friends along for the ride. To Daryl McAvina, we've got Rob Evans, Ernie Regas, Jack Fulton, Ian Hills tuning in tonight. So many people tuning in, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook Live, You can find us on the NGBN.TV network. And if you go to the website, NGBN.TV, you can go to the merch store. They got merch up and running, and you could use the code RIDE10. So you get 10% off any NGBN.TV network merch. And I'm wearing a Superman shirt today, but I'm looking forward to getting a couple of nice NGBN.TV hoodies. The dude kind of looks like Sheldon in the little image there, with some dark sunglasses, but he's got lots of hair on him. But the guy that doesn't have a ton of hair on him, but he will join us tonight, is none other than the host of the Rubio Method. He's a long snapping guru, loves the color yellow, the Dallas Cowboys, and Quebec poutine. Welcome to the show, Chris Rubio.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Oh man. So for the people that don't know Chris out there, Chris is the long snapping guru. Chris and I have sort of this friendship that brewed on the internet. I really admired Chris's work in the long snapping space. Of course, I spent my career long snapping. I told you the other day, Chris, I am positively, in a positive way, envious of the business you've built, devoted to the skill that I use my entire life, because I can't take that skill and use it anywhere else in my life. I can't use it with my kids. I can't use it at the fire hall. I can't use it for this show. And so I'm really, in a positive way, a big fan of what you've done, your marketing, the yellow sweatshirt. I mean, besides the Minions and who else is yellow? I was thinking of it the other day. Who loves the color yellow? The Minions?
Barney Rubble?
Barney
no,
Rubble's
it was brown. Yeah.
Brown. But you're right up there in the color yellow representation of branding, and I love it. So welcome to the show. We know you there's certain things you love, but there's also certain things you don't like. So I joked around all day. Everyone thinks you actually love poutine, but from our previous chat last year when I was on your show, you told me you actually hate poutine. You make anytime I mention poutine on social media, you always give me a comment. So yeah, look at the thumbs down. Well, tonight we decided that this show is not only going to be a learning about you, but it's a you learning about us. We're up in Canada where it's nice, it's cold, there's a lot of space, there's a lot of cheese curd, there's a lot of gravy, there's a lot of potatoes, and we decided we were going to order some poutine to you. So courtesy of a local establishment down in Lewiston, Idaho, by the name of Tapped. There you go. We're having an unboxing here. Tapped is a gastropub located at 424 Main Street in downtown Lewiston. Okay, so right around the street from the Method Man himself. They feature constantly rotating menu of craft beer, wine, cider, and 52 taps. They do several trivia, brewery, and community events every week, and they serve the only poutine we could find in Idaho. So big shout out to Tyler for sending this to you. Rubio, we got some poutine for you, and we got some poutine for me. So let's Sheldon's on keto.
I'm keto right now. I can't touch that, although I love me some poutine.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, dig in.
What is this brown oil?
Oh,
so you're gonna have to take this because
that's the cheese curds. Like the everything's heating up, getting melty. The oils from the cheese curds. The gravy may be separating a little bit, but that's just pure 100% deliciousness, Rubio.
Oh, Rubio, have a bite. Gotta be honest, it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah,
see,
so I know you've said you've had it, and not only would you pass, you just weren't a fan. But I am convinced that you're getting that gas station poutine, that McDonald's. You can get poutine at McDonald's in Canada.
Okay, so I've got fries, I've got cheese, I've got some sort of baconator stuff going on. And then what is this? Is
the gravy? This got to be the gravy.
Is it gravy?
Is it brown?
Yeah, it's gravy.
Brown.
Yeah, give it a stir and pour it over the top.
Oh, I pour it over the top, or do I dip?
Yeah.
No, pour it over the top. You pour it over the top.
You know, our fans online, they're commenting AC Cobbs. He's trying to find out what poutine is.
Is this meat or goulash? Dude,
you know
it's what? Poutine.
You guys keep talking, Sheldon, because I'm going to eat.
So the beautiful thing about poutine right there, that's a picture of it. Now, Chevy's out of Montreal. He's a purist. He wants straight fries, gravy, and cheese curds. Me, I like to get more experimental. You're talking, yours is like a Baconator. You can up here, you can get them with brisket, pulled pork. You can get them with your other favorite food, turkey. Have you ever had a Thanksgiving poutine before, Rubio? It's delicious. It's delicious. It's a game changer.
Number one, I hate Thanksgiving. It's my worst holiday because the food is trash. I like the people. I don't know if you can get a visual. This is actually pretty. I mean, it's very visually appealing. It's AC. It's more like it's French fries with cheese curds melted over it and bacon, and then the gravy is just gravy. It seems like winter food. Like if I'm going to die or I'm going to go out in the winter, I'm going to need a lot of this for sustenance before the bears eat me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is,
that's Canada.
That's exactly what Canada is. Like when I was a kid. So in the West, I never grew up with poutine. We used to like skip classes and stuff in high school. We go in North Battleford, this little place called Country Kitchen. We would skip class, we'd go for coffee, and we order fries and gravy. I'd never heard of poutine before. And sometimes you get those loaded fries, right? But it wasn't until I was in the CFL and I had my first trip to poutine, or to Montreal, where, a couple of the local Montreal guys, Quebec guys, says, you've got to try this. And this was back in 1999. And it was just, for me, it was just a mind-blowing moment eating poutine with fresh curds and gravy in Montreal. Dude, you said you've been to Vancouver and Banff. You've tried their poutine. We need a road trip. We need to meet you out in Montreal sometime soon.
Now, where is Montreal above me, or is it above New York?
It's above New York. It's a ways. Okay. It's a hike, right?
So
but
that's a jaunt.
Yeah,
that poutine was not that bad.
Well, there you go.
I'm not a big salt guy, and it seems like it's a little salty.
Well,
and it's
you got the American version, right? Like so since 1999, when Sheldon was introduced his first poutine is now across Canada. We got some people joining in, telling us where their favorite poutines are. You can get them at A&W, Wendy's, McDonald's has poutine. Like
you guys have it at all those places too?
Yeah, it's
everywhere.
Everywhere. It's big. It's big. Now, I looked at the ingredients of the one you got. Unfortunately, they don't use real cheese curd. They use queso, which, hey, if make do with what you got. But the real poutine is Quebec cheese curd with really nice liquidy gravy. It's unbelievable. But you know what? I'm glad that you tried it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm going to give a big shout out to Tapped and Tyler down at Tapped for coming through because, we had to go to the United States of America in Lewiston, Idaho, and look at Skip the Dishes, Uber Eats, whatever you have down there, DoorDash. I didn't know how to find this, but I was like, I'm getting that man poutine. And we made it happen right here on the ride. So that's awesome.
I see a road trip coming up here where we're going to head down to Rubio. And we'll talk more about the long snapping in a second, but I want to try to figure out what the draw is for you guys in long snapping, why you guys love it so much. But we might have to do a live from Lewiston, Idaho, from Taps there next time we're down there and try their poutine firsthand, Chev.
Yeah, I'm down.
You up for a road trip?
I'm 100% in for that.
Hell yeah.
We should make that happen.
You're not that far from us.
No, I don't know.
That's Idaho. What can it be? 4 hours? 6 hours? I don't know.
Maybe 6 hours. But you know what? Let's move on. We talked about the things you don't like. You don't like the Dallas Cowboys. You kind of warmed up to poutine. You don't like turkey. I assume you like Christmas. Like I got Christmas. Like
Christmas is phenomenal. I love it. We've got an ongoing fight in my home right now because I'm all about like the Hallmark Christmas movies. I'll watch them 24 hours a day if I was up that long. My wife can't stand them. She thinks they all have the same exact plot. I don't care. I'm in the season. I'm all about Christmas movies. I'm all about the Christmas spirit. I'm all about giving, receiving, doing all that. I love it all.
Man, I didn't think that, but you know what? You surprised me. But one thing Sheldon and I both know you love is long snapping. And like you're the guru. You are the guru.
Literally.
Like Sheldon fixed up your graphic there.
I was so long snap, and Chevy's the same way. Sometimes so I just made that little tick mark to take out the extra S in there. But
I never noticed that.
Yeah, no, I do. That's my job. That's what I notice things. But yeah, but this is the thing that really interests me. So we're going to start with how you got into this, because I don't think anybody grows up in grade 3 saying, I'm going to be a long snapper for the Chicago Bears. Long snapping is something that happens, and then you either get it or you don't. For Chevy, he realized quickly that, hey, even though I just started playing football 2 years ago, if I can master this craft, I'm going to the NFL. Mm-hmm. What moment for you was it that you said, you know what? This long snapping is going to be my mission for life.
I would say probably 3 years out of college. I didn't even know what a long snapper was until I was a sophomore in high school. So my 10th grade year. I grew up in Southern California where I couldn't play tackle football because it was done by weight. And you guys probably feel my pain. You were probably big children. And in Idaho, everything is done by age. So 12-year-olds play with 12-year-olds. Doesn't matter how big they are. If you're a big kid, you just can't run the ball. You can't be the running back. You can't be the quarterback. In Los Angeles, where I lived, it was done by weight. So like by 3rd grade, I was out of the 8th grade limit. I even went to 3rd grade and said, I'm going to go play tackle football. They said, okay, you can play, but you're going to play with the 8th graders. I said, an 8-year-old's not going to play with a 14-year-old. That's just not going to work. So I ended up playing flag football, and I was the quarterbacks, and I was the biggest and the strongest, so I could throw the ball the farthest, which was probably 25 yards. So I was just a shotgun quarterback. Someone snapped me the ball, ironically, and I would just get back there and throw it. And I loved it. Thought it was great. Get to my freshman year in high school, my 9th grade year, and they say, what position you want to play, Rubio? And I said, well, obviously I'm going to be a quarterback. And I was about 5'10", probably 240. And the coach looks at me and goes, you'll never touch the football ever again. Yeah. Ironically, I touch one every day now. And so I played my freshman year. I was just a center lineman, didn't know what I was doing. I absolutely hated it. It was the first time ever putting on pads. No one told me what to do. I had a coach that was a yeller, and I'm not someone that you need to yell at. Just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. But he was yelling. And after that, I didn't even play football my sophomore year. I said, this is the worst sport of all time. I'm not going to do it. It's terrible. And then in springtime, I was just playing catch with my buddy in his front yard. And all of a sudden he gets down and he snaps me a football. And I said, what the hell was that? Because I'd never even saw a long snap. If you don't know what a long snapper is or related to one, you're never paying attention to that. 4th down, you're going to go take a pee or get some more nachos. And all of a sudden he goes, it's a long snap. I go, what? A long snap? He goes, let's do the punter and PAT. And I go, do it again. So he does it again. And I get down and I go, I can do that. Because I was a quarterback. So I figured I can just be an upside down quarterback that goes the wrong way. So I get down there and boom, I throw it just one-handed. And he goes, holy crap, you're phenomenal. I go, cool. Let me try it again. Boom. He goes, no, you're seriously really good. Cool. Never even thought about it. Not one more time. Ended up going to my backyard later that week or something, just kind of trying to hit the tree. Just what can I do, And then my junior year, I decided to go out for football. And we're, it's hot in California. It's about 100 degrees. And we're doing one of the things where the coaches are kind of talking, put your toes on the line, everyone put your toes on the line. And we're just pumped that I'm not running because I'm a fat kid at this point. And I've got my hands behind my back, toes on the line. And they say, who can long snap? Who can long snap? And I literally forgot what it was called. And I was just sitting there and my buddy goes, hey, Rubio, that's what you can do. And I go, oh yeah. I literally raised my hand. I go, I can do that. And so my uncle was the varsity coach. He goes, you can do that, Rubio? And I go, yeah. So I get out there, boom, just whip it back there. And he goes, you're phenomenal. And I go, cool. No one cares. And I just did it my junior year, played a little left tackle on offense, but I was big and strong and smart. So I started to get recruited my senior year in high school. And I thought it was a joke. Like, why am I really getting letters to colleges and UCLA, USC, Cal, Columbia, all these schools for long snapping? What the hell is this about? But back when men were men, when we played, you were allowed to hit the long snapper. You were allowed to line up on them. And so that was actually my job as a nose tackle was to make your day long. So much. And so they needed someone bigger. My freshman year in college, my very first day of my physical at UCLA, I was 6'3" and 293, 6'3" and 3/4, 293, because they'd line up on you and they needed someone, a big piece of beef that could take a beating. And I ended up first day out there, they said, okay, they had about 8 long snappers out because the rules were different. And I was the only one that could snap it to the punter. And then they had the head coach and the assistant head coach right there. It was kind of like a movie. And I was the only one that was dumb enough not to be nervous. I just snapped the ball. They said, you're great. You got 1 week to learn how to do 2-handed snaps, so you're cut. I said, I don't know how to do that. You got 1 week, man.
1 week.
So I watched the senior and I just watched him. He thought I was a weirdo probably. And I just figured it out. And I created all these drills for myself. And that's how I basically started the business, because all these drills I did myself and I invented them in a dorm room. So that's a long answer for that one. I'm sorry.
But that's great though. I feel that passion because every one of us at one point the tuning fork went off, right?
Yeah.
And where you just said, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. This is my opportunity. Now I long snapped a little bit in high school. I sucked at it, but I got the ball back most of the time, right? I was thankful I never had to do it in college. Then I get to the pros and I'm playing in Saskatchewan. We don't even have a long snapping coach or anything like that at this point, right? It's just you got your special teams coach. We got a guy named Randy Struczynski who's been snapping since he was 19 years old for the Rough Riders. Amazing. But then you got to fill in the position with a bunch of other Canadian guys. Yeah, you're a defensive tackle. You learned a long snap. I remember the game that I was number 3. I remember the game that Randy was hurt. And there was a discussion between me and a guy named Tyson St. James, who was going to go in there and snap the ball. We're in BC Place in Vancouver. And I'm sitting there on the field in pregame, snapping it back with the opposing special teams coach standing 3 yards away from me with a stopwatch measuring my times. I'm like, if we go in, we're screwed, man. So it's the most, you never think about the long snapper until 1, they screw up, or 2, you're asked to go into the game and long snap. It's freaking hard, man. It's scary.
It's very, very hard. And it's one of those things that you don't realize how difficult it is until you have to do it, because it's such an awkward thing. You're upside down, you're backwards. You got to go this way, then you got to get up and do this. And it is one of those things, though, that once you learn how to do it, it's very, very easy, but it takes a while to learn how to do it. I always say it's like riding a bike.
You know, Anthony
hold on, I'm going to jump here 1 second, though. AC just jumps in here saying first long snapper he ever met was Trey Junkin. Trey Junkin was my special teams coordinator for the Calgary Stampeders, and I think it was 2005. So AC, that's funny because your boy Trey Junkin with a big biceps, right? The guy just trained nonstop. I don't know if you guys ever came across him. He was a long snapper in the NFL for years.
Yeah, he had quite an unfortunate story before he came to the Stamps. He had snapped forever for Arizona. I actually played against him when I was with the Cowboys. Great snapper, was consistent. Retired for a year or 2. Come back in a playoff game for the Giants against the 49ers. I don't know if anyone remembers, and he kind of had that botched snap. That was the last snap of his career, and unfortunately, you know, as Rubio knows, you're only as good as your last snap, and that's the one you're going to be remembered for. It, like if you could be perfect your entire career, but you have a bad snap in a big game, that's all they remember you for. And you know, my story and getting into snapping wasn't like yours. I sucked my first day. I remember enrolling in college in January for the fall, and I went to winter workouts, and I only had played D tackle for 1 year of football. I was like, I got to learn something. So I remember going out for early outs. And the coach was like, all the snappers and returners can come out for early outs. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go learn how to snap. And I just remember early outs was at 5 o'clock. I snapped 2 balls. It was terrible. Coach chomp on his cigar. He says, you know what, Chev, you could just come to the 5:30 practice. Don't bother showing up for early outs. That was my first year. Then fast forward to going into my 3rd year at McGill. The 2 guys that had snapped from McGill before me wound up in the pros. One of them for the Alouettes, and one of them wound up turning it into a 10-year career with the Seahawks and the Chiefs, JP Darsh. And I snapped with JP, and I was like, man, before I snapped with him, I was like, I got to learn this. And going into my 4th year, right at the end of the season, at the end of my 3rd season, I said, Coach, I want to be the long snapper next year. He throws me a ball. He's like, well, practice, and we'll see what you can do. And I was terrible, but the 10,000 hours and all that, I became the starting long snapper in my 4th year at McGill. 5th year, I snapped. I went to the East-West Shrine game as a D tackle, but I was a good long snapper, and the NFL scouts saw me there, and that's how I got in the NFL. That's how I got drafted, and then obviously up in Canada. So it's definitely a tool when I coach kids, whether it's my own kids or who don't listen to me, but every other kid does. I tell them, learn how to long snap. You might want to be a linebacker. You might want to be the starting tackle, but if you can make it on the roster because you could snap, then you always have an opportunity to get a shot at the position you want to play. So you've coached kids for now the last 20 years. I think the stat we had up there is 1,700 long snappers committed to colleges through snapping with you personally, or is that sort of a group of coaches that you have? How do you do that? Because that's not that big.
All those kids have gone through my camps. So yeah, I think it's almost to 1,800 now. And yeah, they've all gone to my camps. I have about 20 camps per year. I also do private lessons out here in Northern Idaho and Lewiston, where I live, right where the home of Taps, obviously, that has delicious poutine. But yeah, so it's been in 18 years, almost 1,800 kids. And it started off very slow. Like my first 2 years, 3 years, 4 years are probably 2 long snappers, 4 long snappers, 8 long snappers. And then it just started to boom. It was probably right around 2006 when I had a kid named Christian Yount, who was my first long snapper offered as a junior in high school. He had 2 full ride offers, and he wasn't even a senior yet. And that's when everyone started to say, hey, let's just lock down a kid who's that good. And I would say it's like a Honda Accord. It's not the flashiest, but it just gets the job done for hundreds of thousands of miles. And if they could lock down a long snapper, because on a fourth down, the head coach or special teams coach, they don't want to talk to their long snapper. They don't want to watch the punt. They either want to yell at the quarterback for not getting a first down, or they want to yell at their linebacker to go 100%. Get the ball back. You don't want to watch the long snap ever. And I always say it's one of the hardest positions on the field, because a quarterback throws 10 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, he's an All-American. If Randy or I have 10 perfect snaps and 2 bad ones, we're fired.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'll tell you guys, if I had to do it over again, knowing how important niche positions are on the field, those years that I was sitting there complaining about having to go for early outs and long snapping just because I was a Canadian defensive tackle, if I would have applied myself, and that's true for like even these Canadian kids here playing up in the CFL, if I apply myself to this trade and I can excel at it, because you can be, these days, you could be anywhere from 200 to 280 pounds, right? You're getting less hits. Long snappers have to cover the field. If you're an athlete, if I would have applied myself to your trade, what were the chances? How much would it have increased that I could have gone down to the NFL between my contracts?
Oh,
big guy running a 4.940, snapping the ball like Randy Chevrier or Chris Rubio, I would have had a shot. But I passed it up. So I think for every parent that's out there watching, when your kids are in football, and even from the time that they're in junior high, get them punting, get them kicking, get them long snapping, because at least with long snapping, like Chevy said, you get to play position outside of that, and you get to get your name out there and open up the doors to play. I'm inspired. I used to look at long snappers as the caddies, right? Somebody's got to carry the clubs around. Somebody's got to go on the field when I come off. But it is such a specialty position. It's amazing.
And now, since you don't have to be as big, Randy, let me just finish this one real quick. Yeah. You don't have to be as big anymore. So like when Randy and I played, you had to be so big because you had to take a beating. Yeah. Now they're not allowed to line up on you. You're not allowed to hit you. So the depth of long snappers that I've had, the biggest I've had 2 guys that were 6'9", 320. They look like big Vikings. And then I've had guys that were 5'3". He said he was 130. He wasn't that big. And these guys went to college. I'd say your average long snapper right now is 6 foot, 200 pounds. That's right there, because they need more of an athletic kid. They don't, about 95% of the colleges in the United States, they don't even block. So you don't have to snap and block, it's snap and release. They got the spread punt. So it's one of those things that I can't even tell you how many kids I've had where they were good at another position, but they weren't great. And they were kind of that tweener at the position, and like, you're good at linebacker, but you're more of a junior college Division III linebacker. But why don't you just work on long snap and become a Division I long snapper, get paid for it?
Yeah, I remember telling you offline. I texted you, Rubio, when I played on a Monday Night Football game, a game-winning field goal against the Redskins. Man, I got mutilated. They had 2 300-pound nose tackles with the double push of the linebackers. Just blew me up. Oh my God!
Back just thinking about
opener.
But that's the evolution of the position. And in fact, it's funny you mentioned that, because I heard you on the Freakonomics podcast, and I had so many people send me that podcast about long snapping, like you could make $1 million throwing a football between your legs. But Bill Belichick, who hates the media, like everything's a one-word answer. Someone asked him at one point about the specialty position and why they reserve that position. And he went on a 10-minute historical dissection of the evolution of the position. And again, if you're listening tonight, just go online, just Google Bill Belichick long snapper speech. It's actually very interesting, and it goes super in depth. But yeah, you're getting kids into college, and out of college, guys are now having specialty positions in the NFL. When I was there in 2001, it was kind of, some teams saw it as a specialty. Some teams wanted a guy that played tight end, maybe linebacker. But now you literally have 3 to 4 specialist spots on the roster for a kicker, a punter, a return guy, and the long snapper. And the position is getting more respect.
All you have to do is think about it this way. A long snapper is a 4th down quarterback. He's an upside down quarterback that goes the wrong way. Now, ask any coach, if you could draft and have a person on your roster that was a 3rd down and long quarterback. So say anytime it's 3rd and 10 and longer, and this guy's going to 100% complete a pass, would you draft him? Would you take him on your team? 1,000,000,000% you would. Okay, so I'm just a 4th down quarterback that's going to complete a 15-yard pass every single time in 0.75 seconds or quicker.
Hey, I got to play till I was 45 because of that, right?
Yeah.
I got to play till I was 45.
Sheldon, I'll tell you what, Sheldon, I'm gonna ask Chris this right now. So this went there's another topic we wanted to have you talk about. Originally, the reason we brought you on the show, but I'm just so fascinated hearing you guys go off about the intricacies of long snapping. And I know there's more. I've heard Chevy talking about the little details, the time and where the laces end up, and you guys actually control it. And it's not just dumb luck. But Chris, I don't know what your schedule is like tonight, but are you free for 5 more minutes after we come back from break? I want to ask you about something that you said on your amazing podcast Decades, which I want to set up as well, because that's my personal favorite show on the NGBN network right now.
I'm all charged up. I've got my carbs loaded with my poutine from Tapped in Lewiston, Idaho. So you got me as long as you need me, guys.
You got it.
So listen, Sheldon, I know that's what I was going to ask you. We had a plan. I had a coach in Jacksonville.
Everyone's got a plan. What did Mike Tyson say? Everyone's got a plan.
Till you get punched in the mouth. And having Rubio on, we knew it was going to be electric. We knew we were going to have some good talk. What we were going to talk about, like you said, we're going to push it to the next segment. That might be the nasty thoughts. Like we'll figure it out on the break. Sheldon, you and I, we text. Everyone else out there, make sure you're following all our social media handles. So at Chevy and Nasty, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We cut up the show. We put up funny clips. This show is going to make some amazing clips. Also, thanks for joining us right here on the NGBN network. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to hit some stuff with Rubio, a little bit of heavy hitting stuff, but important discussion for sure.
This is NGBN TV, a network for men and home to top experts, speakers, authors, and more. Streaming TV for men, created by men.
But why?
Why are we a network that inspires,
Educates, entertains, celebrates, and supports
men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, simply to save men's lives.
There is an epidemic in our community,
and it's taking men from us.
I'm talking about mental health and suicide.
But we have an answer, and it's streaming, live shows, sports, concerts, and more.
in a real way for men to lock shields.
We can't wait to launch this TV network for you and with you.
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 Join our movement at ngbn.tv, coming January 2024.
So you saw me standing up there going into the break. You see how hard this is, folks? Like, you know, I know we make it look easy, and this is like probably the most magical thing that you guys have ever seen, right? Most of our listeners right now actually know us or remember us from back in the day and know it is a little raw, but
at least you're wearing pants.
Oh, thank God
if it was me, I'm not wearing pants apparently.
Well, there you go.
But you know what?
Welcome back to the ride with Chevy and Nasty. We've got a very special guest today staying on with us for an extra segment just because this has been so freaking awesome. Chris Rubio with the Rubio Method. But one of the other things that really caught my attention a couple weeks ago, and first off, I'm going to tell you guys for the decade. So I love sports. I played sports my whole life. But as a dad and watching the direction our country's going in, I have opinions on a lot of different things. Now, Rubio started a show that brought in a bunch of men and now women, ages of 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. You've got some guys that are a little more on the liberal spectrum, a little bit more on the conservative spectrum, and they just talk about the stuff that the news keeps spouting at us and telling us that you're either this or you're that. It's funny though, Chris, when you actually get down to it, there's a whole lot of gray area, and when people discuss, they kind of find a little bit of common ground, do they not?
Oh, 100%. I think the biggest thing is so many people get into these little vortex bubbles where they just hear one opinion over and over and over, and they never bother to talk to the other side because they've learned to hate them through social media or just media in general, the mainstream media, and never just ask like, why? And, you know, the show is brought about because I was talking to my middle son and saying, hey, if you were running for president, what would be your campaign? And he said, climate change. And I go, climate change? I go, what the hell? We've never talked about that one time in this house. He goes, oh, no, it's a big deal. And I remember saying, have you ever heard of the ozone layer? And he goes, no, what's that? And I said, well, when I was growing up in the 80s, that was nonstop. Like girls couldn't even put on hairspray anymore because it was blowing a hole in the ozone layer. And that was it. The world was ending. You know, we're going to have smog and all this stuff. And the heat, you got to put copper tone 5000 on because the sun's going to be too strong. And then my next door neighbor, the judge, who is on the show, he's one of the 60-year-olds. He and I go at it all the time, but I love it. My wife hates it. She goes, why do you always argue with the judge? I go, I'm not arguing with him. I'm just talking to him. I need to understand why he thinks this way. If you think this way, that's fantastic. Okay. If you love poutine, wonderful, nasty, but I want you to tell me why you love poutine, because if I don't, I need to express to you, and then we can both agree to just be two asses on different sides. That's fine. I don't hate you. I just dislike the fact that you like this, and that's fine. You don't like the fact that I dislike this, and that's okay. So that's what I wanted to get going with the show.
Love it.
And it's a fantastic show. It's a fantastic show. It's on our network. Anyone listening tonight, you can check it out. It's Decades, NGBN.TV network, along with so many other shows, and many of the content creators contribute to their show. I'm sure Sheldon and I would love to come on sometime, but Sheldon had a problem with something that was on your show last week, and I watched it after Sheldon told me I had a little bit of a problem. And Sheldon, why don't you set it up, because I think this sets up your nasty thoughts for the day.
Well, you know, I love the topic, and I even wrote in for it a couple times. The backstory of this stuff: Ole Miss, Coach Lane Kiffin, and defensive tackle, second string, backup. Nobody knows the guy. Nobody cares about him. Defensive tackle DeSanto Rollins. In the spring, DeSanto Rollins trails off, and one day just stops showing up. He made a mention that I need a break. I'm having some mental health issues. His mom calls the coach saying my son needs some help. But the bottom line is, the young man, the way he handled it is he just disappeared one day, and he didn't show up to workouts. He didn't show up to meetings. He didn't show up to any of the appointments he had, and he disappeared for 2 weeks. He comes back in. He finally meets with his head coach, and the head coach just chews him out and threatens him with his future at Ole Miss. And now, Janet, can we hear that clip? Now, you guys are going to have to turn up your speakers a little bit. I think it's a little bit quiet, but I really want you to hear this.
If you would have come here when you kept getting messages, the head coach wants to talk to you, and you saying, I'm not ready to talk to him.
What was it?
Well, what world do you live in?
I don't see why you gotta be disrespectful, honestly.
Get out of here. Go. You're off the team. You're done. See ya.
Because
See ya. Go. And guess what? We can kick you off the team. So go read your rights about mental health. We can kick you off the team for not showing up. When the head coach has to meet with you and you don't show up for weeks, okay, we can remove you from the team. It's called being the It's called hiding behind and not showing up to work. If you would have come here when you kept getting messages, the head coach wants to talk to you, and you saying, I'm not ready to talk to him.
What was it?
Well, what world do you live in?
I don't see why.
Yeah. So,
and I think that's it. I think we might even be looping there.
Yeah, we might be looping, but
Sheldon. So if we talk about that here for 1 second, so obviously, Rubio, if one day you just don't show up for this gig and the cameras come on and you're not there, how many weeks is it going to go before they just stop turning the cameras on?
Well, it'd be 1 week.
It'd be 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead with your comment, because I want to be able to decipher.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we go back to your original thoughts on that? Because at the time you're like, geez, these kids, these generations of entitled kids need a wake up call, because in the real world, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You repeat what's your take on that?
Well, there's a couple different ways to look at it. And since that clip came out, I've spoken to a lot of football coaches at all levels, and I've spoken to some teachers as well. The issue now is, did Lane Kiffin handle it the right way? I'm not sure. Okay. Here's the thing. He's always been rough around the edges. He's one of those coaches that everyone knows he's rough around the edges. But you have to understand, he's not just a coach. This is his job. All right. So does he want to have to deal with this as he's trying to prepare for Alabama or something like that? No, he doesn't. This wants to be on the beyond back burner. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, this guy goes on a hiatus, a little vacation for 2 weeks. There's got to be people that have been checking in on him. There's no way this whole entire team would let this kid just go for 2 weeks. We've been in high-level college football, and you guys have been in the Canadian NFL, all that stuff. It's one of those things that someone's checking on him. And I find it very hard to believe that no one checked on him, no one just said anything, and you can't just go on hiatus. And what I've heard from a lot of people, you guys remember when you were younger and we played in high school, college, and all that, and there was always the 1 or 2 or 3 kids on the team that whenever the practice got a little bit harder, they suddenly had an asthma attack, and then they couldn't do anything, or their ankle, their knee just kind of, their back, let me sit out. And then as soon as practice was over, boom, they were healthy. And it was amazing. And a lot of coaches and teachers right now are saying that these kids nowadays are using this mental health episode as a crutch. They know they can lean on it at any point and say, it's my mental health. I need a 2-week break. And the coaches can't really say anything about it because then they're the giant ass. And so Lane basically just, he got flustered. I'm done. I'm done with this. I don't need this. This is not something I'm preparing for Alabama, whoever you're preparing for. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. And yes, I can kick you off. So this to me is like the modern day, and I can't remember if it's AC or I came up with it. It's the modern day asthma attack where there's, I can't breathe. I need my inhaler. Where a lot of kids, don't get me wrong, do have asthma and inhalers. But back in the 80s, I remember looking at kids and they're, I can't breathe. I can't run these extra gases. I'm like, dude, I saw you earlier today. You're fine. And then right after practice, he's jogging to his car. It's like, that was a sudden bout that you overcame. And so I see both sides, but you do college football, NFL, that's a job. Okay. If you're going to be taking 2 weeks off, you got to let someone know.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. Now, from the standpoint of, we've all seen that kid that shuts it down during gassers at the end, or that kid that has the miraculous injury after after sitting out some of the conditioning or whatever. My thing is this. So what I found, and I'm a little older and wiser now, and to be honest with you, Chris, this is probably the first time I'm talking about this on the air. I was that kid when I was in university. That's how my career ended. My last year at Iowa State. Whenever you see, my take is this, these are still kids. 100%. Whenever you see a kid that he's not walking away from gassers, he's not looking for an excuse out of conditioning, he disappeared. Absolutely 100% gone. And my question, I think, on the show was, who checked in on him? And they're like, nobody even, he's such a problem guy that nobody even really bothered to check in on him in a serious way. His mom's calling into the school saying, there's something wrong with my son. I've not seen this from him before, but there's nobody really checking on him. And do you know why? You're right. Kiffin's got one job, and that's to win football games. If he was sitting there, his job was to give hugs to every player that was down. He's going to be out of work soon too. But I think as we're realizing in the society, when you see a guy that goes missing for 2 weeks, and Chevy's played with him, I played with him, guys that just vanish on you, I think we've got to build something in as men and as organizations to go and look for them, especially with these young men. Because this is, I don't think the problem was, everybody talked about, he was a second string tackle. He didn't care if he's a freaking second string tackle. The issue happened, I'm guessing, the 3 to 6 months before that, the buildup of the year going into that, to finally one day, something broke in this kid.
Yeah, Sheldon, let me add something here. So I did a little bit of research on this kid. High achiever, right? Like, he's not there just to play football. He was on the academic honor roll, the principal's honor roll 3-4 years in a row. If a kid's balancing football and division I football and actually devoting time to being a good student, he's putting pressure on himself. So there's that element. All three of us, we've been student athletes. We know the grind it is if you actually take your studies seriously. And by all intents and purposes, it looks like that's what this kid was doing. But yeah, you mentioned that, Sheldon, that when a kid disappears, we're on a men's mental health network. The founder of our network, and by the way, we're going past midnight because we've been given the green flag, the checkered. They're in my ear. They're on my phone. They're like, you guys keep going. So we're going past midnight. So if you're on the ride with us tonight, we're going to go a little bit. We're going to stretch it because this is too good. But the founder of our network, who raises the flag for mental health, he's very open about it. So I could say this publicly. When he went down into his basement on his 50th birthday to end his life, he didn't tell anyone about it. When I was sitting in the locker room in the Dallas Cowboys with Demetrius Underwood, who is very public, had very public struggles with mental health. He's the guy, I believe he was a second-round draft pick in the NFL with the Minnesota Vikings. He tried to slit his throat on a Miami interstate with a steak knife. He had bipolar disorder and a number of issues affecting him. When he was with me in the Cowboys, he was my locker mate right next to me. In one breath, he's telling me a joke, and it's the funniest joke in the world. In the next breath, he's looking at me dead eye serious, saying, I'm going to kill you. He had mental health issues. And at one point, he disappeared for 4 weeks. 4 weeks. No one on the team knew where he was. No one. Not one person knew where he was. He come back 4 weeks later, shows up one day. Everyone's like,
where you been?
Where you been? Where you been? You know what he said? I've been sleeping. So these things exist. And Lane Kiffin, the problem I have, this is the problem I have with what's gone on in Ole Miss and what might be going on in many organizations. There was an article that came out 5 months ago where Lane Kiffin was specifically talking about the mental health certifications that his coaches went through and that they are there to support the athletes, and a whole bunch of lip service paid to this idea that we support athletes. And then you go and hear this, calling the kid a pussy.
Called him a pussy. He called him a pussy.
He's a, what is he, 19, 20-year-old kid? Like, if I'm a dad, put it this way, if I'm DeSanto Rollins' father, and I hear that coach that came into my house, that had dinner probably at my table to court my son, to say, hey, I want your son. We're going to turn him into football. He's going to be Ole Miss. That guy call my son that, man, I am running to Ole Miss, and we're going to have words. We're going to have words, because you don't treat kids like that. You know, especially like Sheldon said, yeah, my kid breaks his arm. My kid, sprains his ankle. Yeah, I'm going to say, hey, son, you got to figure it out. You can't make the club in the tub. But when you disappear in this day and age, when we know that the suicide rates among men it's an epidemic, it starts somewhere. Where do you think it starts? It probably starts when that kid makes national use and his D1 coach calls him a pussy. Sorry. Go ahead.
Rubio.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to chime in. I understand the issue, and I truly get it. But for asking the coaches, because I just find it hard to believe that no one else saw the code red on this situation. And honestly, I don't blame the coaches. I understand it's easy to blame the coaches. Okay, Lane Kiffin, he's the top dog. He takes all the blame when wins and losses. Okay, you're going to get that. Okay, who's his defensive line coach? Who's the defensive graduate assistant? Who's the second defensive graduate assistant? The kid was probably most likely on PAT block or punt block or something like that. Who's that special teams coach? Who's that special teams graduate assistant? Who that? And then that's the order. But who I blame more are his teammates. There's no way people saw this kid go for 2 weeks and no one said, dude, where's Johnny? Or I can't remember what his name is. Like, no one checked on him. Where are we at a society when dudes can't just call another dude and say, dude, you haven't been here for 2 damn weeks. What the shit? You're on the team. We haven't seen you at training table. Haven't seen you getting your ankles taped. You haven't seen you in therapy, getting stem. Where are you? And if someone doesn't respond to me within 24 hours, I'm going after their ass, because maybe I'm just more compassionate because I watch Hallmark movies or something, but it's literally just, why not go check on them? How hard is that? With technology nowadays, you can check on them, FaceTime, Zoom, text, anything you want. But now we can't just go, and they're on a college campus, go to his dorm, go to his apartment, figure out someone, just knock on the door. How hard is it just to check on someone, just to make sure the dude is breathing? Maybe I'm just a nicer guy, but there's people on the team that I hated. But if I didn't see him for 2 weeks, I'd still go check on him, because we're still, as Sub 60 Ed said in the commercial, we're still locking shields and we're going to go together.
Yeah, no,
I love it. And you look at AC Anthony Cobbs just writes in, these situations do exist, but this kid recorded the conversation, which is a big red flag. Yeah, and there's a few nuances to the story. I'm not saying that I'm absolutely right on the standpoint that this should have been treated more seriously by the university. There are some red flags. He brought up racial issues. He brought up he recorded the conversation like a gotcha moment. I think at the end of the day, though, I'm fine with the kid even not being on the football team anymore.
100%.
Because if my son breaks his breaks his hip socket and he's not going to be able to play over the next 2 seasons, you know what? I understand he's not going to be a part of the team. However, still finish out the scholarship, get this kid some help, get him the therapy and the treatment that he needs. There should be a provision in it too, to help Lane Kiffin, that if you have a kid that is no longer mentally fit or capable of playing the game, that you can continue the commitment to this young man or young woman in any sport without taking up a spot on the roster. Because I get the pressure. In fact, the whole thing started when Kiffin was trying to pressure him out the portal, right? He was upset that the kid didn't go to the portal, and so he was going to move him to scout team offensive line. Kiffin just didn't like this kid.
Well, yeah, and
this kid knew he didn't like him.
It's a business decision for Kiffin. This is his job. Like, if his team performs poorly, he's fired. So he gets making $7 million a year, whatever he makes, to making zero. So this is one of his employees. I know that's not right to say, but these are athletes. But yes, they're employees of the college football program. And Lane Kiffin is their boss. If he has an employee that's not up to standard, he needs to push it off to, his HR, which in this case would be basically a psychologist for the team, which I think all college teams have nowadays. And so hey, this kid's not performing. We haven't seen Johnny in 2 weeks. Dr. Quinn, medicine woman, go figure it out. Go figure out what's happening here, because I can't have him on my team. Number one, he's not here. Number two, it's most likely going to start affecting other people. And the fact, like AC said, where he came in and recorded it, and then he started with the buzzwords of mental health and racism. I would immediately, as
he prepped for the call.
Oh, dude, you're literally just cut and paste.
And again, like, when I go back to the experience that I saw, and I lived, in that locker room, and then comparing it to this case, I'm not saying it's exactly the same, and I'm not saying how the kid handled it with recording and all that, and some of that, whether it was authentic or not, it sure as heck shined a light, whether it was, again, planned or not, it sure as heck shined a light onto a potential gap there with these young men, these high-performing athletes. I mean, these college football programs make a lot of money. Some of the stuff we were going to talk about that we didn't talk about, how much they're paying kids to transfer to schools. Like, we're not going to get into that, but the money is there. The money is absolutely there to have these supports in place. And there's more and more pressure on these kids at a younger and younger age to be professional athletes in this college setting before they're ready for it. So I think what this did, and again, probably not the right way, but it did shine a light on a gap in terms of some of the things that might be affecting athletes and how poorly equipped, because again, even if you say whatever that exchange was, if the coach at least knew going in that when a player disappears and we don't hear from him, there's something wrong. You don't start berating him. Like Lane Kiffin sounded like a little kid. I remember AC saying he went schoolyard bully on him.
Yeah,
on the Decades, 8th grade bully in the Decades podcast. And I thought, yeah, he did. And you're a coach. You're still a leader. I don't care if you're running a business. You have a culture, and you set a culture, and you set a tone at how you treat people within your company or your business. And in a moment of shame, put it this way: Lane Kiffin didn't know he was being recorded. If he went into that meeting and actually had a proper conversation with that kid, saying, hey, how can we support you? You know what? I called you for 2 weeks and you didn't answer. If he had an actual sensible conversation that showed like he actually cared about the individual, well, this wouldn't even be a non-story. That recording would be like, wow, this guy's amazing.
And the way I look at it is not even this individual, but my son, my daughter, as our kids get up into those college ages, this is just something I think we should be aware of. But I'm going to send the last word to you. And I'll make one comment on AC. Yeah, the kid needs help, and Kiffin's a jerk. And like Chevy said, I think there's probably a gap there. But I think maybe this is time to start wrapping this up, because Rubio, I know it's getting late there in Idaho right now. But last word to you. What do you take away from this?
Well, I take away that everyone is different, and that's fine. And this is why something like the NGBN.TV network is around, because there's 29 shows. There's going to be 46 shows. How many shows are going to be on? It's going to be streaming coming in January. But everyone is different. Every person is different, and that's okay. Some people are going to watch The Ride with Chevy Nasty and love it. Some people are going to hate it. And that's okay. Some people are going to watch Decades and love it. They think it's the greatest, like Nasty does. Some people are going to hate it. Some people are going to watch the Rubio Method. Oh my God, this is so great. I love Rubio. Some are going to look at me and go, oh, dude, no, I don't like that guy's attitude at all. That's okay, because they're going to watch the Bear Essentials podcast. That's fine. Okay, that's good. And everyone has to understand that not everyone is the same. So move on to the fact that you have to be able to work with someone. You're going to be able to connect with someone. Just find the person or the show that you can connect with and lean into it. And then get a hug, get a virtual hug, do what you got to do. But it's got to be that everyone's different. It's okay. But there's answers out there. You just got to find the person to answer your question or the show to answer your question.
And that's why I loved that you brought up this topic. This is what this is all about. We're all going to go through this at some point in our life, whether it's someone in our family or someone in our friend group. I love that you're taking on these tough issues. And I love in a sports show that we get to talk about something other than just who screwed up the call on Sunday Night Football, right? So, hey, Chris, once again, thanks. I truly mean it. I love your work. I love Rubio Method. I love Monahan. So give a big shout out to Monahan as well. I love everything that you're doing right now. Thanks for coming on the show. Chevy, why don't you close us out here?
Yeah. So so much we didn't get to tonight. We were going to talk a little bit about the Saskatchewan Roughriders getting a brand new coach, old teammate of ours, Corey Mason. We're going to give a big thumbs up to him. We were going to talk a little bit about Corey Perry getting booted out of Chicago, but none of that really matters because I think what we did tonight is we midstream adjusted, Sheldon. That's kind of par for the course with us. We have a plan. We kind of write it on paper. We spend 4 hours planning for the show, and then it just goes off the rails. That's what the ride is. And having Rubio on, we knew it was going to be good. We knew it was going to be fun. We knew it was going to be entertaining. We knew we wanted to hit that topic and do it the proper justice. We're part of this network, this NGBN.TV network, and Rubio said it best. There's a lot of different shows there. There's some, I never was a real big podcast consumer until I started getting introduced to Rubio and the other folks on the network. And now I have 2 or 3 shows that I love tuning into because they speak to me. Rubio is one of the shows I love listening to. Yeah. But I don't know. Do we pop this now? The idea I had when I was driving, because again, it's spur of the moment. We got a show in 2 weeks. For those of you listening, it's going to be the holiday time. Sheldon and I were thinking maybe we get some of the NGBN network people to drop in on us next show. We're going to have Chevy and Nasty's favorite things. You're going to get to meet some of the folks. You met Rubio tonight. We'll probably have him on. You're going to meet Sub 60 Ed. You're going to meet Charles Wallace. We're going to invite all of our content creators to come and spend 5-6 minutes with us, talk about their favorite things. You get to meet us. The network is launching in January. We're going to be on all connected TV platforms, Roku, Amazon, Apple TV. So we're really getting excited for this launch because, as you know, now we're on Facebook Live and YouTube, but we're going to have, when you're laying in bed on Roku TV or Apple TV or Amazon Fire, you can watch us there while you're laying in bed. You don't just have to watch us on your tiny phone. So we've got all that coming up. You follow us on social media at Chevy and Nasty on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X. We're going to cut up the show. We're going to have some good clips for you. We want the comments to keep coming. We love that.
Great job tonight. I'm going to step in there right now too, guys.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all the comments tonight. I know when we got Rubio on and we hit that mental health, I've seen a lot of people talking about their own stories here because it is everybody's stories now. It's just we never used to talk about it, right? Yeah. People are going through hard times. We talked about it tonight, and I love the response.
Yeah, absolutely, Sheldon. You shared a little bit of your story. I shared some of my experience as a professional athlete. It's out there. From what I see from that discussion, there still is a stigma. People are still a little bit nervous to talk about mental health because they could talk about everyone else's story, but sometimes we can't talk about our own until the moment's right. But that's what we're aiming to change. We want to have fun discussions, but we want to have real discussions. We want to take you along for this ride. We appreciate everyone that was there tonight, especially Jenna for producing the show, Dream Reach Chiefs for sponsoring the show, We Drone for sponsoring the show, and the NGBN.TV network for hosting the show. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back in 2 weeks right here on The Ride.